Welcome viewers, this is Point of View. Today on the show we look at and analyze the State of the Nation address by the President most recently last week. We will be highlighting the issues that are relevant to the ICC cases ongoing in The Hague, and we'll be looking at retributive and restorative justice. I'm your host Linda Kroeger. We'll be back after this short break. Welcome back viewers. Today in the studio with me is Mr. Edigah Kavulavu, an advocate and program officer and transitional justice expert with the International Commission of Jurists. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Tell us a little bit about your thoughts. Give us your reaction on the address that was given by the President, more so specifically towards the ICC issue and the cases.
Well, most Kenyans were following very keenly the State of the Nation address by the President, and for the first time the President made a public apology on behalf of the previous governments and even the coming government regarding the crimes that have been committed to very many Kenyans. For the longest time we've been talking about historical injustices. We have had injustices in the land sector, historical injustices when it comes to employment, and very many other issues. So I must say that I must commend the President at least for making that step towards giving a public apology. But again, it has been 7 years since the post-election violence in Kenya. Indeed. And I think the apology to some extent is long overdue, because towards a healing process, it's always important first for the government to acknowledge the wrongs that it did to the Kenyan citizens.
Now, part of his speech, more so towards the end, highlighted the issue of retributive and restorative justice, and he really emphasized on the restorative aspect of it. Is this in relation to his case being thrown out? And give me your thoughts on the same.
Well, there has always been the debate whether peace should precede justice. And the reason as to why the ICC intervened in Kenya and other African countries is because those who bear the greatest responsibility for committing atrocity crimes cannot be tried at the domestic level. And the International Criminal Court does not prosecute the low-level perpetrators. It is the role of the government because it is the duty of the government to ensure that all perpetrators are brought to book. So when the President speaks about restorative justice, which means that the victims should be at the forefront in ensuring they get reprieve, the victims should be at the forefront in determining how they should get justice, you find that it would be very difficult to deter these crimes if the offenders are not punished. Therefore, it's very important to to strike a balance between retributive justice as well as restorative justice. In a retributive justice setup, the offenders of crimes are prosecuted and punished according to the threshold of the crime that they are committed.
All right. And how does this reflect upon the victims? Is it pro for them, or really doesn't meet the, let's say, moving on from what happened during the post-election violence?
Well, there are very many approaches that can be taken to ensure that victims get justice. And the first one, of course, is for the government to acknowledge that it committed crimes, and then truth and seeking a process so that people can come out in the open. And then, of course, compensation compensation for the victims. It's very important that the victims of international crimes are compensated, and the government acknowledges that indeed we have victims in this country. The government embarked on a mission to resettle IDPs, but you realize that as a result of the post-election violence, we have IDPs who are reintegrated back to their family, and those IDPs who used to live in camps. And what the IDPs have said over the years is that compensation by the government has not been fair. Because the persons who are living in camps got a certain amount of money, which could enable them either to look for a piece of land or to buy property. But those who are reintegrated with the relatives did not get money that will enable them to start their life from where they had left.
In essence, what you're saying, Mr. Kavulavu, is that although there are steps that have been taken, they have not been enough?
Well, the steps have not been enough, especially in terms of bringing the offenders to book. The Director of Public Prosecution said that there's not enough evidence to prosecute and try the persons who had been, the cases that had been reported to the police stations and had been taken to the court. So where does that leave the victim who is still living with the perpetrator? Where does that leave the victim who sees his neighbor every day, the neighbor who stole his vehicle or burnt his shop? Therefore, in a justice and peace debate, we can never turn a blind eye to the justice process.
All right. Thus far, considering the steps that have been undertaken here and there, and what's going on at the moment at the Hague, what is the position of the victim in relation to all that's been said and all that's going on around them?
We have had victims that have been participating at the ICC, and you've had situation victims who were not able to participate at the ICC or were dropped out of the ICC because a case was terminated or it never went to full hearing. But again, you find that the ICC is a court of last resort, and the domestic mechanism should complement the processes that are ongoing at the ICC. In essence, as a country, are supposed to put in place measures to ensure that international crimes are prosecuted at the domestic level. Kenya has already domesticated the International Crimes Act, which provides for international crimes such as genocide, such as crimes against humanity. There have been discussions to put in place an international crimes division in the High Court of Kenya to prosecute international crimes. But again, you find that there are quite a number of issues that still need to be addressed before we put in place such mechanisms. For example, witness protection, the level of the prosecutorial muscle of the court, among other things. Therefore, in my own assessment, I don't think the government has done enough to ensure that the perpetrators of the crimes are brought to book.
Indeed, and I actually want to highlight a little bit more on that area. And the President talks about restorative justice. And although there are discussions to have this division in place, we also haven't seen the sort of healing process and cohesion process going on to bring together the victims and the perpetrators on the ground. And could this spell doom for us in the next elections that we might have?
Well, two things come into my mind. The first one, the narrative has always been the real victims are not the ones who faced atrocities during the post-election violence. So we really need to answer that question. Who were the real victims? Were they the persons who were prosecuted at the ICC or indicted at the ICC? Or were they the persons who lost their property, who lost their loved ones?
Okay.
The second issue that comes to my mind is that the narrative in Kenya has always been that we accept and move on. For the past 7 years, there hasn't been any form of closure. Therefore, coming 7 years and asking Kenyans to start talking about what happened more than 5 years ago, we will be opening wounds that are healing. In Kenya, we had the Truth TJRC process, which was supposed to, in essence, enable the victims to tell their stories and then make certain recommendations that will bring closure. We know the challenges that the commission has faced in terms of leadership and even in terms of implementing some of the recommendations that have been put in the report. Okay.
So in essence, I mean, point blank, do you think that maybe in the next elections we won't have a repeat of tensions, even if it's not the actual fighting on the ground?
Well, in 2007, 2008, that period was not the first time that we had post-election violence. We have had post-election violence ever since. But going by the 2013 presidential elections, you find that there was relative calm. The ICC played a pivotal role in ensuring that at least there was some calm in this country. At least the persons who bear the greatest responsibility, or persons who plan to commit international crimes, now know that in the event they do that, they might be indicted by the ICC.
All right, moving on to the current cases that relevant to Kenya, the ICC. Do you think the president's case having been thrown out will have an impact on Sang's and the deputy president's cases?
Well, in the Kenyan situation, you had two cases. The first one pitting the president of Kenya, and then the second one pitting the deputy president and Sang. Mm-hmm. And the facts in these cases are different. Mm-hmm. The crimes, the region within which the crimes were committed were different. Mm-hmm. So these two cases will be determined on a case-to-case, on a different basis.
Okay, wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, we're taking a short break. This is Point of View.